What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to The Breakdown. I'm Alex here with Cameron and Peyton, and today we're going over our Week 1 fantasy football reactions. Let's start right into it. Cam, what we got?
One guy that I had on my team, Michael Thomas. I think he was going around the 6th or 7th round. He had a tough matchup with A.J. Terrell, who's one of the emerging young cornerbacks in the league. Great man coverage guy, and I wouldn't say he torched him, but 2 touchdowns. He had like 5 catches, 57 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think Michael Thomas had a great game. And I think he can be going in as low wide receiver 2 for the rest of the year. What do y'all think?
Low wide receiver 2.
Yeah.
That's a little low. I thought you were gonna say low wide receiver 1.
No, I don't think it's off.
He only had 5 receptions.
Yeah. I mean, no, he had 8 targets too, and they did pass the ball more than they did last year. Jameis, like before he got hurt, his touchdown interception ratio was like one of the best in the league, but like the Saints did not use
yardage was really.
They didn't throw the ball downfield that much.
Yeah,
Kamara.
They didn't throw the ball period that much, and a lot of it was to Kamara. So I think this year or Week 1 proved that they will throw the ball more and more efficiently and more down the field. So I think that's just gonna only help out Michael Thomas. What do y'all think?
I mean, I agree. I have a share of Thomas as well, and I'm really excited. You know, he's really stinking it up early in the game, but I mean, he found his way. I think the Saints really have to let Jameis throw the ball. I think, and at the start of that game, they were trying to get a little too cute, and they were really struggling. And I think when you really let Jameis do like what he's good at, at the end of the game when they were throwing the ball because they had to, I mean, he looked a lot better, and you know, Jameis actually ended up having like a really solid stat line.
Right.
And to add on to that, I think Jameis is a guy who is going to be streamable and someone you can stash like a QB2. I mean, I don't think he'll be your every week starter because I think he's going to be a little matchup dependent. But when he's playing the Falcons
I also think like another guy in the Saints office, Jarvis Landry. I think Jarvis had a great game. I think he led
the team in catches.
Led the team in catches and targets and yards, right?
Yeah, he had like 114 yards.
Yeah, he had a great game. So I think not many people assumed this Saints offense would produce many fantasy relevant guys, but I think going in, obviously Kamara had a bad game, and he'll probably step up. He'll probably get more involved in the receiving game. But I think Jarvis is going to be flex option. Michael Thomas is going to be wide receiver 2, maybe low wide receiver 1. We'll see. But I think not many people saw this happening. You know, Jameis
and Olave, he had a decent first game.
Jameis obviously streamable, like you said.
I think too that if you're playing in a one flex league, I don't think Michael Thomas is like. I think Michael Thomas is in and out of your lineup because 5 receptions isn't reliable stats. I mean, I know he found the end zone twice, and also it was kind of game script reliant at that they throw the ball at the end. I think if the Saints are up in that game, Kamara's getting a healthy share of that workload. So like, I mean, if you're a one flex league and you're starting like Michael Thomas, like Adam Thielen, like those 2 guys, like I don't know, like just kind of a toss up in like that perspective.
I mean, well, going into next week, there's going to be a matchup against the Bucs. So I think we're expecting the Saints to throw the ball heavy. I'm expecting that to be a close game. If not, the Saints will be behind. So they're going to have to throw the ball. I mean, they're going to have to get Kamara more involved as well.
I think for the rest of the season, the Saints are going to have to throw the ball a lot, which is why Michael Thomas is going to get his load or like increase from Week 1. But I think it pretty much all depends on opponent, game script, just health too. You know, Michael Thomas, they said they were going to limit him 20 to 30 snaps. And
I mean, speaking of Kamara, we had some very disappointing RB1s this week.
To say that, I just want to say it could be an overreaction, but
yes.
I feel like there might be a little bit of a shift in the fantasy football world for the wide receivers. If you go look at the wide receivers taken in early drafts, go look at Jefferson, go look at Kupp, Chase, Tay, and look what they all did yesterday. They all dominated. They all
Tyreek Hill,
Diggs. I mean, they all had monster weeks, and normally you never talk about taking those guys over running backs, and it could just be a Week 1 thing, or it could be
even Kelsey outscored a monster as a running back.
Players like y'all said, Tay and Tyreek, both of those players were falling in drafts because like downgrading quarterback, downgrading like offense.
Still some of that sound in the
Tyreek had 12 targets for nearly 100 yards with 2 at his quarterback, and Tay put up a 30 spot. Like in a game where their offense was a little shaky against the Chargers, but still, like, you're taking guys like Mixon over him, Najee over him,
Yeah.
Swift over them, and they just didn't produce. I don't know what it was. The Lions offense scored 35 points.
Swift did produce.
Swift
Swift had a very nice game.
Swift had like
But
25 points.
Najee and
Najee didn't. Mixon had like 21.
Mixon had a decent game. But back to what you were saying, there was a lot of disappointing RBs.
I mean, you look at. Besides Taylor had they played Texans, but CMC had 15.7 points.
Which is not what you
Eckler had like 11. Kamara had 7. I mean,
Najee had like 10.
Dalvin
He did leave
Cook-
early. Cook
Dalvin
had like
Cook,
13.
yeah.
I mean,
all these high end
Henry
RB
had
points.
8.
Yeah, exactly.
And out of all those guys that I think we just talked about, Henry is the guy who I worry about the most. The Giants really they looked like they just keyed it on Henry. If you saw, they got a bunch of good hits on him. I mean, his stat line was 82 rushing yards. That's it. You're not gonna get Dontrell Hilliard actually caught a lot of passes. He had a receiver.
Dontrell Hilliard had 22 points yesterday,
Two
man.
receiving touchdowns.
So he's not gonna catch passes, and so he's the guy that I'm really worried about. Eckler, I'm not too worried about.
Not bad.
Cook, I'm not too
I
worried
don't know.
about. Kamara.
Watching that Chargers game, they were rotating in 3 backs, really consistently.
They were,
and
They kind of in the red zone. It looked like Michelle was getting
Yeah.
most of the workload in there, man.
But-
Sony was getting a lot.
I'm counting on him gonna catch more passes next
Yeah.
week.
Yes.
You gotta count on him to find the end zone, especially Thursday against the Chiefs.
That is true.
But for me, it was Henry just watching how they were really able to key on him because the receiving core of the Titans is just so bad.
It
I
is
mean,
bad.
and he's not going to catch any passes. So if he's not finding the end zone, if he's not rushing for that goes again with like a guy like Nick Chubb. I mean, Chubb had what
142.
A guy rushes for 142 yards and he has 15 fantasy points. I mean, that's kind of disappointing.
Yeah, and all those touchdowns pretty much go to Nick Chubb because he's more the receiving back.
Yeah, exactly.
And then another reaction I had, there were some bad offenses, especially for fantasy football this week. When I look at teams like
The Cardinals.
the Cardinals, the Rams, the Packers, the Cowboys, and I'm gonna go the Rams first because they were the Thursday night game. But right now with the Rams, you can start Cooper Kupp, and I think that's it. I'm not gonna start Matthew Stafford.
What about Henderson? Henderson had a pretty good game. I feel like that backfield is
I feel like
shaky.
you can start Henderson
If you're in a very deep league.
if you're in a deep league and you need it. I'm not gonna roll him out there over a flex wide receiver or an RB2 because I don't really think that he's that good of a running back, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
he
agree.
did get his touches, but I don't think he did a lot with them. However, they do have a good matchup this week. But I think Kupp is the only guy that can be a locked-in starter. A-Rob on, I need to see it. Akers, I need to see it. Stafford, I need to see it.
Another guy in a deep league that you may be able to start is Tyler Higbee. Tyler
Yeah.
Higbee had 10 targets. He only had about 5 catches.
He did
but
have
still,
3 drops too.
Yeah.
So
10 targets in a game where they only scored 10 points. He had 3 drops, like Alex said. I think if you're in a deeper league, he's definitely a viable tight end option.
I think another team just like that out in the West might be the San Francisco 49ers.
I agree.
I really like Ayuk, don't get me wrong, but the production hasn't been there, and I need to see him start to produce.
And I think it starts with Trey Lance.
And Lance needs to get the ball out quicker. You saw him holding the ball a little too long. Obviously, it was bad conditions, but I mean, you saw him holding the ball too long, going through he went through his reads, but he wasn't making decisions quick enough. He wasn't tucking into running. Took too long in the pocket. I mean, only a startable player in that offense is Debo right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think I want to see one.
Start him.
I want to see one more week, to make sure because obviously.
And also Jeff Wilson Jr. is the guy that you're gonna need to pick up in
Yes.
leagues because Elijah Mitchell's hurt.
And TDP was a healthy scratch.
And I can't say that you have to start Jeff Wilson Jr. because you never know if Elijah Mitchell's out, who's gonna
Yeah,
end up getting the runs.
I think with Mitchell out, the bulk of the rushing offense will be through Trey Lance now. I think he'll get upwards of double-digit carries now.
Yep.
But with the weather, I feel like that's what I was saying before. I need one more week out of the Niners offense, just to see how Ayuk produces, how Debo produces. Because I don't know, the thing with Debo, he only had 2 catches, and he only had 2 targets.
you also see you might get Kittle back. And obviously Kittle isn't a very good. I mean, he's produced somewhat, but they're using him a lot more in blocking schemes, not more down the field. The 49ers haven't really aired out. Last year, they started they're trying to methodically beat somebody down. They're not trying to throw the ball more. So if you look at Debo like that, I mean, Ayuk might get into there. I don't know.
Yeah.
And
It's a
then
shaky offense.
another. I want to go over two more offenses, just the Cowboys and the Packers. And starting off with the Cowboys, they looked horrendous last night, even before the Prescott injury. I mean, CD was nowhere to be found, and I don't know if that's on him, if that's on Dak, or if that's on both. But
The Buccaneers defense looked just good as well.
I mean,
so,
you're starting CD the rest of the season, regardless. It doesn't matter. I mean, Cooper Rush is going to be the quarterback, so
Yeah.
you have to hope that CD finds something. I mean, before Dak comes back, Zeke, I don't think I'm starting. I'm starting Zeke unless it's a generous matchup. Pollard, I don't think I'm starting Pollard until I see it. And then I think that right now the only two guys that are starters on the Cowboys offense in fantasy, I think Schultz and CD, and that's because where you drafted them, they should be every week starters. I don't think.
But I mean, I would allow them to get you some high points.
I would advise you to go to the best team in your league and offer him CD, and I would get CD off your team.
I agree. I would.
As a CD owner last year, he was really up and down. Yes, I know Amari's gone, but so is Dak. So Dak is out 6 to 8 weeks. You can't rely on Cooper Rush to produce CD.
I mean, and that offense looked atrocious when Dak was in. When he was in, it looked atrocious. So
They
I can't
only
even
scored
imagine.
3 points.
Yeah.
That-
Literally, like that's.
The other wide receivers in that offense couldn't get open. Plain and simple. They couldn't. They couldn't.
Noah
get
Brown had a nice game. Noah Brown had 9 targets. He had
Yeah,
5
but,
catches for
I mean,
about
those-
70 yards.
all those dink down,
Garbage,
dump and
yeah.
pass. Like that's
they
how
couldn't move the ball. I mean, so I'm not starting anybody except CD and Schultz.
Yeah.
And then finally the Green Bay Packers. I think the only guys you're starting, I think,
Aaron Jones
and AJ Dillon. You can't. I think the whole wide receiver room. I mean, I think there might not be a guy.
Tough blow with that 75-yard touchdown.
Yeah,
drop
Christian
by
Watson just put himself
You
in the
don't want to see
doghouse.
that's where you lose your trust.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And Lazard was out this week, so it was Dubes.
And also on one of the
Con-
plays, I'm pretty sure they targeted Dubes. It was a Tay route. They motioned him out.
Yeah.
They motioned him out, and they do like a little flat, and guys blocking for him, and the Minnesota guy almost picked him off because Dubes wasn't even looking for the ball.
Yeah.
Like that's how you Aaron Rodgers trust. Like he's the guy that fakes handoffs, throws it out wide. Like that was Tay's thing.
Dubes is running the wrong routes on some throws too. It's just stuff that you don't want to see.
I mean, obviously, I think it'll be a lot better as the season progresses.
Yeah,
All it does
I
is it
agree.
takes time. The Packers. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen in our
Yeah,
lives.
he'll make anything work.
But I want to say I think AJ Dillon is a every week starter. I think
AJ Dillon might be an RB2.
It's clear that It's clear that they're going to run the offense through both these running backs. And Dillon did have a better game than Jones yesterday, but with Jones, I wouldn't panic. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Jones catches like 5 or 6 passes next week after what we saw with the wide receivers. I mean, they're going to have to get him involved in the passing game, and then
Dude, it's
Dillon.
ridiculous.
It looks like
Dillon. If the Packers are moving the ball, Jones is the one who's moving the ball for them. Like,
exactly.
And Dillon's the guy that's gonna get you the 4 or 5 yards.
Yeah, he's just going to put his head down and just.
This Packers offense wasn't disappointing. If the wide receivers catch a few balls here and there, I think they might have even won that game.
And it starts off with Watson dropping the
Exactly.
bomb. That's just a horrible way to start a game.
going on to what Alex said, I think like Aaron Jones was lined up in the slot pretty consistently last game. And
That's
I think
encouraging.
Alex said he'll probably catch about 5 to 6 passes. Like I can 100% see that, but it all starts with the wide receivers. Like if you're dropping these balls, you're running the wrong routes. Like you lose your trust.
Not
in Aaron
dropping them
Rodgers.
in.
That's where the whole offense just blows apart.
And you hope when Lazard comes back next week that he
Yes.
at least gives Rodgers a little bit of stability, and at least you have a guy who's been there before and knows what he's doing.
But I think Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon are high RB2s, could be low RB1s when they're moving.
Yeah, I loved what I saw from Dillon.
And I think you're starting him every week.
Yes, agreed.
All right, well, that's going to wrap it up. Thanks for watching our fantasy reactions. Leave any questions down below. Follow our TikTok. We're always posting stuff on there.
And if y'all have anybody that y'all think are sleepers and want us to recap on, just leave it in the comments or hit us up at school. See y'all. Peace.
Peace.